Hello and welcome to the Green Truth podcast by TiiQu, your go-to destination for insightful conversations on sustainability. We're committed to delving into diverse perspectives on environmental issues, guided by the belief that embracing truth empowers us to create a better world for generations to come. I'm Chantal Kerr-Shepherd, your host, and today I'm joined by Wlodek, a financial strategist with a remarkable journey from underground activism in 1980s Poland to advertising cutting-edge climate tech. He's currently supporting the global rollout of Nutriselect Pure, a new kind of organic mineral fertilizer that's turning heads for one reason. It might just outperform synthetic fertilizers. So here's the question. Can nature not only compete but win? And if so, why is it so hard to get game-changing green tech adopted at scale? Let's find out. So Wlodek, your journey is unlike most. It's from political activism in Poland's Solidarity movement to a global career in finance and innovation, and now sustainable agriculture. Can you just give us a glimpse into that path and what led you to work on Nutriselect Pure?
It's been a long journey, more than 40 years, a few years in Sweden, 10 years in South Africa, 25 in Switzerland. So I moved around. And what I have discovered in life is that I'm a rebel by nature, with an allergic reaction to things when don't work well. So I'm brave enough to take on challenges and to drive change by supporting risky, groundbreaking technologies, solutions. That's me.
And how did you get to this place from political activism and now working in agriculture?
I emigrated from Poland to Sweden. I got a political asylum from Sweden in the mid-80s. I spent some time in prison. I could stay there for 15 years. As a consequence, I left the country. But before I left, I actually became a farmer. That was my way of kind of internal emigration. I went to the countryside. I had a farm, 62 hectares. So for me, life is taking me back to where I was before leaving the country. And from Sweden, I went to South Africa. I visited my old friends and I decided to stay. I moved family from Sweden to South Africa. And after 10 years, I started getting offers back from big banks to go back to Europe. And I decided to change. And I left for Geneva with Citibank, where I spent 25 years. So I became a Swiss private banker, and before I was a South African investment banker.
And you say you've been to prison and you were heavily involved in political activism. What did that look like at the time, and why did you have to leave?
It wasn't so bad, if I could say. It's not that I was tortured or beaten. I was a very young person, 23, when I became the youngest member of the National Committee of Solidarity. So for me, I had no fear. As an economist, I didn't believe that what was happening around me made any sense. So I was a kind of natural fighter for a change. But I think at some stage I got a little bit disappointed with our movement. At the same time, I think regime just realized that it's maybe time to change a little bit. Remember, the Polish Pope was also trying to interfere and to be involved in the process of change. So I think I was probably one of the last emigrants, but no regrets. I think I'm a different person, looking at everything from a very different perspective.
And then you had your farm as well, and then you left that behind to go work in finance. How did you come back to work in agriculture?
By coincidence. About 15 months ago, a friend of mine called me and told me that there is a Polish entrepreneur with a great fertilizer technology. Fantastic when it comes to chemistry and physics and mathematics, working on different algorithms using AI. But when it comes to global strategy and when it comes to finance and financial engineering, it's not his area of expertise. So she asked me if I could maybe join him and help him with this project. And initially I thought that, just another fertilizer. It took me a few weeks to realize how different it is. And this is the product which can really make a huge change. I think this is the product we've been waiting for 120 years, since the chemical fertilizers were introduced to the agriculture.
So what's the biggest difference between chemical fertilizers and natural fertilizers, and why hasn't there been any breakthrough on that subject in the past few years?
If you go back to the history of agriculture, initially we discovered that there are certain bacteria in the soil, and they have this natural ability to absorb nitrogen from the atmospheric air. And they were the prime source of nitrogen for the plants, and nitrogen is the source of growth. If you don't have enough nitrogen, plants just don't grow. They don't utilize the natural potential. And later on, we discovered that there are certain plants with also above average ability to absorb nitrogen from air, and they became what we call green compost. And later on, we discovered that any type of compost and any type of manure can actually help enrich the soil and feed the plants. But about 120 years ago, two German engineers, they came up with two different methods which combined created the chemical industry. And what happened is that the traditional natural fertilizers, they're actually not rich in nitrogen. And the chemical fertilizers, they have much higher level of nitrogen. And so it's why they feed the world and not the natural fertilizers. Plus, remember, natural fertilizers, they also have some weaknesses. They are actually not pollution-free. They go into underground water systems, so they pollute rivers, lakes. And they have limited quantities, and they are very local by nature. You don't transport manure, between continents on long distances. So, and the volume is limited because it depends on plants and bio waste or production of animals. So there's a kind of catch-22. It's a conundrum. You would like to go organic, natural, but at the same time you don't have enough natural fertilizers, and they're actually not pollution-free, and they are not rich in nitrogen, so the plants don't grow as much as we would like or need. And the chemical fertilizers, they are more precise. They include much higher level of nitrogen. And, initially, we believe it's a miracle. It took us a long time to understand the consequences of applying synthetic fertilizers for the soil and also for the plants, because we know now, today, that plants are not the same anymore. They don't have the same structure. They don't have the same qualities. The cotton is not a source of the same quality of cotton fiber anymore. Food, the plants today, they have much lower nutritional value because they come from the soil, which has been degraded by the years of applying synthetic fertilizers. And very often they are cultivated in monoculture. So, it's not the same anymore. And there's this dilemma. If you go organic, you take a risk of a yield deficit because you don't support plants with enough nitrogen.
Yep.
If you go synthetic way, you supply plants with enough nitrogen, but you lead to the degradation of the soil and over time to the reduction in the quality of plants and the nutritional value. So it's a massive conundrum, which way to go. And I think we offer the only available solution, which is fully natural, organic, but at the same time outperforms not only natural fertilizers, but also the synthetic ones. And it's not a small margin. It's about 20-30% more. Why? Because we activate these natural bacteria which are present in the soil. It's like switching them into a turbo mode. They just start absorbing much more nitrogen from the atmospheric air and deliver to the roots, to the plants. So the plants have unlimited access to nitrogen during the whole cultivation cycle. So they grow quicker and they go bigger. And it's why you have 20, 30% of more of whatever you cultivate, whatever you have in your field.
So how does it increase the nutritional content compared to chemical fertilizers?
So the natural fertilizers, they are unpredictable when it comes to the content. They have a lot of macro components, but it's always different. It varies from compost to compost, manure to manure, from during the cycle, during the year, and they actually don't deliver enough to the plants. Synthetic fertilizers, they are rich in nitrogen, and they support plants with a lot of other components like phosphor, but at the same time they are not biologically active. So it's like eating highly processed food. You have everything, but at the same time your body it feels like you've been eating something, but at the same time body doesn't benefit from the same type of food. What we do, but first of all, our fertilizer has a fixed formula, adjustable to the needs of different soils and different plants in different climate conditions. And the level of all the micro elements and trace elements, they are predictable because they are measurable. It's first time ever when you talk about natural precision fertilizer. So the plants are not only supported with nitrogen absorbed from the atmospheric air by this beautiful, fantastic bacteria, but they also very well fed with everything what they need. It's like your children. If you feed them well, they are less vulnerable. The immune system is strong. They grow well, they're healthy. And the same applies to the plants.
So I guess the big question is, why hasn't this been done before?
Because nobody came up with the same idea, the same technology as the founder of TiiQu, the company which is behind this fertilizer. And initially when you talk, it sounds unbelievable.
It does.
It takes time, a lot of energy to educate, to make sure that people understand, and to make them open-minded and willing to listen and to get involved. It's a challenge because if you live in this conundrum for 120 years, organic with low yield or synthetic with degradation of soil, and you see no option, no alternative, and suddenly somebody comes and says, wait, I can be better than synthetic, at the same time much more organic than natural traditional fertilizers. They say, wow, how is it possible? It takes time, it takes energy. We write a lot of articles. I'm in dialogue with a lot of people. We are open for cooperation with different agriculture institutes, universities, scientists. This is what we do. We try to make sure that the message gets out, and it's provided the way which helps to understand and become involved.
What's been your biggest success in terms of messaging?
I think that there is more and more really smart agriculture people. And when I say really smart, I'm talking about scientific background. I'm talking about people who are really involved in driving the progress, who are really trying to find the solutions to this conundrum. And there is more and more of them willing to talk, and we provide them with all the information. And there is more and more people who are involved in distribution of fertilizers. There is more and more people, let's say, leading personalities in agriculture communities. And we talk to all the continents, from North America to Australia. So I think the message is getting through, and there is more and more interest, more and more of understanding of what we offer, and willingness to be involved. So I hope that very soon we're going to be able to sign big commercial contracts for delivery.
And how are you challenging that yield question? You mentioned that synthetics way outperform in your claims to outperform synthetic fertilizers?
That's the biggest challenge because it sounds like magic.
Yes.
Okay, you are organic because remember our product is well researched, is registered, it's certified as organic. It has this European organic status across the whole union. So it's not that I'm talking about something which is maybe hypothetical on the drawing board. It's there, it's real, it's measured, it's analyzed, it's certified. But when you talk to people and you say, we actually outperform the chemical fertilizers by 20, 30%, they say, oh, is it really possible? So I go into the same dialogue as with you. But I also support my line of arguments with referrals from various people, because it's not that this product hasn't been tested in real life. We have very positive comments from people who tried before in Poland, in Turkey, mainly these two countries so far, because of relationships. Remember, I think our challenge is that we haven't done the tests in this scientific way with well-recognized, trustable institutions, universities, institutes. We've been using our relationships with different farmers, more entrepreneurial one, more proactive, and asking them to try. So we now have a big collection of referrals, people who are in the business of producing fruits and veggies and field crops and mushroom. We have a collection of, I guess, probably more than 20 extremely positive referrals from people who tried. So now we work on a global campaign. I call it Green Yield Discovery Voyage. And our idea is to send containers full of our fertilizer for free to all the continents, people representing different agriculture, universities, institutes, governmental agencies, the leaders of organic ecological farming. And we want to ask them for one thing in exchange for free fertilizer: try, test, and measure in a proper way. So we will have a collection of positive referrals, not only from friendly farmers, but also from recognized, credible institutions with all the stamps. And, when I talk to somebody from Canada or Australia or even South Africa, when I say, it's been tested, they say, yeah, but in Europe, we have different soils and different climates and we have different plants. So I said, yeah, there is nothing which should stop our fertilizer from working. But if we do this campaign and we have proof, in the pudding that it works on different soils with different plants, on all the continents in different weather conditions, climate conditions, I hope that we're not going to deal with any doubts anymore. It's going to be so well tested. And obviously we're going to have a massive campaign in social media and traditional media at the same time to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity to make a lot of positive noise around everything what we do. Because I think today it's a challenge. We knock to different doors and very often nobody answers. And what really drives me mad, that there are a lot of people who are well paid for taking care of us, for taking care of soil and plants and food and environment, and you approach them, and the only thing you ask them to do is to listen to the story and try and support, and there is no interest. At the same time, you have a lot of activists making a lot of positive noise in social media, and when you approach them, very often they are so focused on what they do themselves, they're just not prepared to open and say, maybe from tomorrow I should be doing something else. Maybe I should be telling a very different story. Maybe I should, change my message and my activities.
How affordable is this new fertilizer?
It's priced at the level which competes with, let's say, better quality chemical fertilizers. Okay, so it's not out of range. And please remember, because very often when I talk about changes in the financial model of farming, fertilizer is not 100% of your cost structure. Okay, depending on the intensity of your farming and the country, could be 10, 20, 30%. Even if hypothetically you increase the cost of farming, so you increase your 10 or 20, 30% in the cost structure by 5 or 10%, but you increase your revenue by 20, 30, it changes completely your profitability account. I look analysis because somebody asked me from the US, based on American experience, real life farming experience in the US, taking into account the participation of fertilizer in the cost structure of modern farming, we improve profitability of farms by about 40%. So I'm surprised, frankly, that it takes us so much time and that we are still where we are today, because I think we should be around the table and on the tables long time ago.
Yeah, it should be at the forefront of green initiatives for the strategy for the EU, for example. Have you had any difficulties in terms of innovation and regulation?
When you talk about fertilizer and food and health and soil, it has to be regulated, okay? And I do understand. So it's not that we object in the form of regulations, okay? But it shouldn't take so much time, firstly. And secondly, remember, our product is already researched, certified, registered, approved. It has the status of an organic product, okay? But now, when you talk about adoption, this early stage commercialization, we have to face, the disbelief that something like this is possible, and it takes time. And we, as a startup, we have to cover all the costs. Time is money. Time is not money only when you earn money, but time is money also, and maybe even more when you spend the money to stay in the business, and when you have to invest so much time and energy in convincing people that they should try what you offer. And I think when it comes to regulations, at least in case of our fertilizer business, Europe wants to be the greenest continent. And Brussels, they have this Green Deal initiative and a Blue Deal initiative now with water. And they have different programs and different funds, and they support different initiatives. And believe me, myself, I knock to all the doors. There is no person in Brussels who is involved in any form of agriculture-related activity, okay?
Really?
Really, no response. We knocked to the doors of a Polish agriculture commissioner when he was still there. We knocked to the doors of the Polish agriculture minister. No response. And, we started this conversation with my statement that I'm a rebel by nature, and it drives me mad when things don't make sense. And I'm really mad today because, I expected that if I approach somebody from Brussels who has on a business card, I'm responsible for agroecology. And by the way, Brussels forced the farmers to go on strike in a way, because remember 2 years ago, they decided to block the highways. Why? Because Brussels, as part of the Green Deal, decided from the near future, you're going to have to leave 4% of your agricultural land free for a year, to give it the rest, and about 20 or 25% of your farm is going to be committed to ecological farming. But the farmers, they're smart people. They may be conservative, they're smart, and they can calculate very quickly. If I don't make money on 4%, and I less 20, 25% less money on 20, 25% of my land, I'm out of the business. So they decided to go on strike. And in my view, as a former strike organizers, that was the first successful strike across Europe. Brussels had to give up. Now, the funny part is that because we can produce our ecological fertilizer on an industrial scale, we could actually make a plan, and I made the calculations. In a few years, we could build so many production facilities that we could supply the European market with so much fertilizer that everybody could switch into agroecology, ecological farming, with 100% of the farming land.
So what's stopping them?
I don't know. You tell me. I think we make a lot of noise. We drive a lot of initiatives, a lot of programs. We spend a lot of money. You know, I did my homework. I look at all the programs with, by the EU dedicated to transition of farming in Europe to agroecology. Okay? I look at all the initiatives, all the programs, all the projects supported. None of them has any potential to address the challenge on a continental scale. They support with some substantial money a lot of small, good, good thinking projects, but with no opportunity to really introduce any sizable impact. They cannot change. If you say that you have this fantastic compost in a far away corner of France, and you will have your farm is going to be the best, the most organic, great. And I really support it. It's fantastic because you need all the fantastic people doing all the fantastic things. But it's not replicable. It's not scalable.
Yeah.
We come to the market, we come to the regulators and say, listen, in 5 to 10 years, the whole Europe could be driven by ecological farming. And Europe says, I'm too busy. I'm too busy with what I'm doing now to really, spend some time with you, asking you questions. Maybe they're going to be critical. Maybe I'm going to ask some of my, some scientists, some agriculture institutions in Europe to really grill you and test you and look at everything from very scientific perspective. Great, do it. You're more than welcome. Inertia, lack of activity, complete rejection is what drives me mad.
So what's the next step for you? How do you get this scaled?
We raise the money. We finance this global awareness campaign. We make sure that there are no doubts that whoever is interested and open-minded and willing to help us by testing in their own environment with different soils and different plants, we're going to deliver our fertilizer for free. We're going to, in a way, waste a year because this is how long it's going to take. Remember, agriculture is a seasonal business. In Europe, it's once a year. In some countries, south, maybe twice or 3 times a year. So, but to test on all the continents is going to take us a full agriculture year. And I think that once we have this proof of concept, it's going to be much easier for us to reach a lot of farmers and farming communities. And also, please remember, we also knock to a lot of corporate doors. There are companies producing food and using agriculture product as an input. That applies to textile industry using cotton. It applies to food producers using agriculture products as an input material. We go to all of them and we say, listen, we have better nutritional value. We bring you better quality of your cotton fiber. On top of this, we have the lowest carbon footprint fertilizer. So it doesn't matter from which direction perspective you look at what we offer. Sorry, we are better than all existing alternatives.
It just seems like the funding should come from the EU for this, but you're just going to have to go out and get private funding, which is baffling to me.
Which dilutes the benefits of the inventor, okay? And because if you come up with an idea like this, and you need more money, you invite private capital, and you dilute your interest, or you sell out to a big corporation, and in a way, you support this process of monopolization of certain sectors of economy and certain big corporate players, which I don't think regulators really understand the role.
Is the challenge the same globally, not just in the EU?
I think it's globally. But EU, with its policies and very often decisions to force different commercial players to go green. EU should be a front runner. They should be really, really supporting any initiative, any innovation, any product which really moves them closer and can, let's say, reduce the opposition from the farmers.
So what's your advice for people like you with new innovations that are proven to work, that can make a difference to sustainability, to soil degradation, to anything that they're working on, whether that's from ocean to land, if they're coming up against these barriers?
I think, first of all, don't expect that the world is going to be on its knees because you try to save it. Okay, it's going to be one of the biggest disappointments. I think you have to budget much longer time, and you have to, in your financial model, in your budget, you have to incorporate time, which costs the money and requires capital for dealing with regulators and disbelief and all the truly credible tests.
I'm so impressed with your resilience, and I really hope that you can bring this to market, not just in Europe, but globally as well, because it has huge potential to help sustainability on another level that isn't being tackled at the moment.
I keep my fingers crossed, and believe me, I'm not going to give up until it's going to happen.
If our listeners want to find out more about your product or about you, where can I send them?
You can look at the website. It's TiiQuna, TiiQuna.pl. It's a Polish company.
Brilliant.
And from there you can get all the information you want, and you can contact us, and we would be very happy to answer all your questions.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Wlodek. I'm in pure admiration of what you're trying to do. So,
pleasure is mine.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Green Truth Podcast. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and inspiring. Remember, it's through understanding truth and action that we can pave the way for a sustainable future. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more thought-provoking conversations, and don't forget to leave us a review. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.